A year ago, if you had told me I'd be sitting in the office of the hottest tech company in New York, overlooking the shimmering skyline, I would have laughed. My name is Chris Evans, and now I run strategy for Horizontal, a company that's changing the face of the financial world. But that wasn't always my story. Let me take you back to a time when the biggest fight I had was trying to prove I existed at all. I grew up in the bustling suburbs of New Jersey, in a house that was so pristine it might as well have been a museum. My parents, Lucas and Margaret Evans, were the power couple behind Evans Investment Group. One of the biggest names in real estate and finance on the East Coast. To anyone on the outside, we had it all. Big house, fancy cars, endless parties. But what no one saw was the tension beneath the surface, the expectations that smothered me from birth. You see, I had an older brother, Daniel. From the moment he could walk and talk, my parents made it clear that he was the golden child. He was the one who could charm anyone in the room, the one who could walk into a board meeting and leave everyone in awe. He was everything they wanted. And then there was me, the quiet, introspective kid who preferred reading books about investing or studying market trends. But I was always in Daniel's shadow, always. And no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I tried to carve my own path, I was never enough for them. The summer I turned 15, I remember walking into our living room after my first big internship. I had just worked with a small hedge fund and helped them predict some major market shifts. I thought this would finally get my parents to notice me, get them to see me as more than just their shy, quiet son. But instead, my dad dismissed it. "That's great, kid. But you need to learn how to close a deal. Show me the big moves, not the small ones," he said, barely looking up from his phone. But Daniel, he could walk into any room and sell ice to an Eskimo. He didn't even need to try. I hated it. I hated how effortlessly he was adored. One night, we were at one of those high society dinners in Manhattan, the kind where everyone's in tuxedos and cocktails are flowing freely. My parents had dragged me there to learn how to network. I sat at the table, a glass of sparkling water in my hand, while Daniel was the life of the party. He stood, made a joke about a recent deal they'd done, and everyone laughed. Everyone loved him. But me, I sat there quietly, trying to escape the pitying glances. Mom gave me a forced smile. "Chris, why don't you get up and talk to someone like your brother does?" I remember looking down at my lap, my fingers tracing the rim of my glass, wishing the floor would swallow me whole. By the time I turned 17, things had gotten worse. Daniel was already being groomed to take over the family empire. He was everything our parents had ever wanted: charismatic, confident, and ruthless. Meanwhile, I was stuck in the corner, reading finance books late at night, trying to figure out a way to escape the suffocating expectations. And then, one afternoon, it happened. I overheard a conversation that shattered me. I was in the hallway, about to walk into the living room, when I heard my father's voice through the door. "Daniel is the future of this company. He's got the people skills, the vision, Chris. Well, he's not cut out for this life." My heart stopped. My stomach twisted into knots. I couldn't breathe, stood frozen, my hands shaking, listening as they talked about how I would always be the backup, the one who had potential. Sure, but never the right stuff to lead. That word backup stuck with me like a knife. I wanted to scream, to burst into the room and demand they see me, but I couldn't. Instead, I stood there in the dark, my face burning with humiliation. It wasn't long after that conversation that I made a promise to myself. If I was going to be stuck in this family, in this shadow, I would make sure it was my terms. I would be better. I would prove them all wrong. And they would see me not as the quiet one or the backup, but as someone who could break through the noise. I focused on my grades, on winning financial competitions, on learning everything I could about the stock market. But the more I learned, the more I realized how far behind I was. That's when I found her. Her name was Mia Smart, bold and completely unafraid to take risks. We met at a finance seminar in Manhattan. She wasn't there to network with the bigwigs. She was there to learn, to soak up everything, just like me. When we spoke, something clicked. Mia wasn't like anyone I knew. She didn't judge me or see me as Lucas Evans's son. She saw me for who I was, someone who had potential. And for the first time, someone actually believed in me. Mia and I became inseparable. We started working together on side projects, building financial models, researching markets. But as we grew closer, I began to notice something. While my parents had written me off, Daniel was constantly in their spotlight. He was already taking on more responsibility in the family business, and I could feel the pressure mounting. But I had a plan. I would do what they couldn't understand. I would break away, make my own name, and leave the shadow of their expectations forever. So while Daniel was given all the opportunities, I found my own. I landed an internship at Horizon Tech, a rising star in the fintech world, and quickly became an invaluable asset. The work was everything I had hoped for: dynamic, innovative, and full of possibilities. It wasn't about status. It was about doing something that mattered. But of course, that's when things got complicated. One afternoon, a call came in from my father. I didn't pick up. I couldn't face him, not now, not after all the years of feeling invisible. He left a message, his voice surprisingly urgent. "Chris, we need to talk. The company, it's in trouble. We need you here, please." I stared at the phone. He wanted me now, when it was convenient for him. But I had already made my choice. I'd already found my own path. That night, Mia and I sat in my apartment, the city lights of New York casting a golden hue on everything. She looked at me, her gaze soft but firm. "You don't have to go back, you know? You've built something here. You've done it without them. They don't get to control your future anymore." And she was right. I was no longer the quiet son who lived in his brother's shadow. I was Chris Evans, the man who had built himself up from nothing, the man who would succeed on his own terms. But that's when the real question hit me. Was I really ready to cut ties with everything I had ever known? Or was I still craving my family's approval, even just a little? The next day I walked into Horizon Tech's headquarters, the sleek glass building towering over the bustling streets of New York City. I'd been working here for a while, but it felt different now. Every corner, every conference room, every strategy session felt like a new world, a world where I could finally breathe. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone here. No one was looking at me like I was the backup son of some real estate tycoon. But as I made my way to my office, something gnawed at the back of my mind. The call from my father. The desperation in his voice. He needed me. For years, I'd dreamed of the day when I could prove them wrong, and now that I had, I was facing a new kind of dilemma. Was it enough? Or was I still trying to escape their shadows? I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I needed to focus. I couldn't afford to let emotions pull me in different directions. Mia, ever the voice of reason, had told me not to look back. "You're here because you earned it, Chris, not because they gave it to you. Your future is yours now. They had their shot at you. It's your turn." Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me away from the tug of the past. I turned my attention back to the project at hand, launching a new blockchain-based financial platform that would change the way people invested. It was ambitious, risky, but it felt right. Everything I'd worked for had led me here, and I wasn't going to let fear or guilt pull me off track. As I dove into the project, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Hey bro, we need to talk. Dad's been on my case about you. He wants you to come home. We need you at Evans Investment Group. It's important." I stared at the screen for a moment. The words stung more than I expected. It wasn't just that he was asking for help, it was the tone of the message. Daniel didn't need me. He wanted to control me, to drag me back into the world I was fighting to escape. But what about my parents? Was there any part of me that still wanted their approval? I set the phone down and exhaled sharply. No, I had worked too hard for this. I had come too far to go back. Just as I was about to close my laptop, my team walked in. Mia was among them, her face lit with excitement. "Chris, we've got something big. Horizon Tech wants us to pitch our platform to the board next week. If we nail this, it could mean major funding." I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the opportunity I'd been waiting for. The moment I could prove not just to my family but to myself that I was capable of creating something groundbreaking. This was my time. The days leading up to the pitch were a blur. Late nights, endless revisions, heated discussions. The tension in the office was palpable as everyone knew what was at stake. Horizon Tech was on the verge of something huge, and our project could make or break it. But as I prepared for the big day, another text came in from Daniel. "This is your chance, Chris. Dad's struggling. It's not sure how to keep the company afloat. You're the only one who can help. Think about it. The guilt began to creep in again. Was I being selfish? Was I leaving my family behind just to prove something to myself? Was this the right choice, or was I running away from responsibility? But Mia's voice cut through the fog of doubt. You've got this, Chris. Don't let them drag you back. You're here for a reason. You don't need to fix their mess. They're the ones who need to see your worth. Her words rang in my ears as I stood in front of the board of Horizon Tech the following week. I wasn't just presenting a project, I was presenting myself, my vision, my future. The room was filled with sharp minds, people who had been in the industry far longer than I had, but I wasn't intimidated. I spoke with confidence, passion, and precision. I laid out how our platform would disrupt the industry, how it would lower barriers to entry for everyday investors. I watched as the board members nodded, their interest piqued. When the pitch ended, the silence in the room felt heavy. Then the chairman stood up and clapped his hands. Impressive. This could change the game. We're in. I couldn't believe it. We did it. The room erupted in applause, but I felt something else rise within me, a sense of pride that I had never known before. This wasn't just a win for the company, it was a win for me. For everything I had fought for, everything I had sacrificed to get here. As the celebration carried on into the evening, I found myself standing on the rooftop of the Horizon Tech building, looking out over the glowing city. Aya joined me a few moments later, her eyes sparkling in the night. I told you, she said softly, you had it in you. I smiled, taking her hand. For the first time in years, I felt like I was truly seen, like I had finally earned my place in this world. But then, just as I was about to kiss her, my phone buzzed again. Another text from my father. Chris, this is serious. We need you. Come home. We're offering you a partnership at Evans Investment Group. We can fix this together. I stared at the screen, my heart heavy with uncertainty. I had built something real here, but could I really turn my back on everything my family had given me? Was there a part of me that could forgive them for the years of being invisible? Mia stepped closer, sensing my hesitation. What's wrong? She asked gently. I looked at her and then back at the phone. They need me. My family. But I don't know if I'm ready to go back. Mia didn't say anything for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, filled with quiet wisdom. Chris, you don't owe them anything. You've earned your success. You've got a choice now, to keep living for their approval or to live for yourself. This is your life. Own it. I felt a rush of emotion as her words hit home. I had spent so much of my life trying to live up to their expectations, trying to fix their mess. But Mia was right. This was my time. I didn't need their approval anymore. The next morning I called my father. I've made my decision, I said. I'm not coming back. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Chris, this isn't the end. You'll regret this, my father said, his voice cold and distant. But I didn't feel regret, not for a second. I looked out over the skyline one last time, my heart filled with determination. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could do this on my own. As the days passed, the growth of Horizon Tech skyrocketed. We hit new milestones, attracted more investors, and solidified our place as one of the leaders in fintech. And I knew deep down that this was just the beginning of something even bigger. But I still had one lingering question, one I couldn't shake. Was I finally enough? Was I ready to let go of the past and build a future that was truly mine? Weeks passed since I made my decision to walk away from Evans Investment Group. Horizon Tech had become my world, and for the first time, it felt like everything was falling into place. I was working alongside some of the brightest minds in fintech, creating strategies that were pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. The energy in the office was electric. I could finally say I was part of something bigger than just the shadow of my family's legacy. But as our platform grew and became more successful, a sense of unease began to settle in. The success was undeniable, and every win felt like a step forward. But every text from my father felt like a shadow I couldn't outrun. We need you, Chris. Come home. You belong here. I'd ignored every message and every call, but still, the weight of it lingered. One night, as I sat at my desk in the office, I received a call from Mia. She had been my rock through all of this, the one person who truly saw me. We had been spending more and more time together working late, grabbing drinks after long days in the office. and discussing everything from business strategies to our personal dreams. "Chris," she said softly when I picked up, "it's been thinking." I leaned back in my chair, my mind still reeling from the pressure of the last few weeks. "About what?" "I think it's time for you to face the truth about your family," she said. Her words deliberate, like she was trying to make me understand something I had been avoiding. I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Mia was silent for a long moment, and I could almost feel the weight of the silence stretching between us. "Chris, you can keep running, but your family is always going to be a part of who you are." "I know you think you've built something on your own here at Horizon Tech, and you have. You've earned everything. That doesn't mean you can just erase everything else. You've been fighting for so long, trying to prove yourself, but what about forgiving yourself for all the years you've spent angry and resentful?" I sat there, staring at the skyline, the lights of New York flickering like 1,000 tiny reflections of my own scattered thoughts. Forgive myself? I repeated the words under my breath, not sure how to respond. "I know you're scared of going back," she continued, "but the question is, are you ready to move forward? Not just with Horizon Tech, but with your life. With who you really want to be." Her words pierced through the noise in my head, cutting through all the frustration and doubt I'd been carrying. Maybe Mia was right. Maybe I had been so fixated on proving I was enough without my family that I had never truly faced the truth of what that would mean for me. Was I just trying to outrun my past? Or was I building something because I believed in it, because it was what I wanted? "I don't know if I'm ready," I said, my voice more vulnerable than I cared to admit. "What if I go back and it all falls apart again? What if they make me feel like I'm not enough, like I'm still the backup?" Mia's voice softened. "Chris, you're not the backup. Not anymore. You've already proven who you are. But this is about you choosing who you are. Not them, not me. You." Her words settled over me like a warm blanket, comforting and terrifying at the same time. I had spent my whole life trying to prove I was worthy of something I wasn't even sure I wanted. But now I was being given the chance to make a choice, my choice, not my parents', not Daniel's, not even Mia's. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed at my desk, staring at the city lights, going over everything in my head. Every text from my father, every decision I had made to get to this point. The guilt, the anger, the sense of betrayal, and the yearning for validation, it was all swirling together in a tornado of emotions I wasn't sure how to untangle. But in the end, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I called my father. "Dad," I said, my voice steady, but with a weight I hadn't allowed myself to carry before. "I've made my decision." There was a long pause on the other end, a sharp intake of breath. "Chris, you don't understand. The company's in trouble. We need you now. You're the only one who can." "I'm not coming back," I interrupted, the words coming out of me more clearly than I had expected. "I've built something here at Horizon Tech, and I've built something in myself. I don't need to prove anything to you anymore. I'm not your backup, and I'm not going to live in the shadow of your expectations. I'm choosing my path, my future." And it's here. There was silence on the line, thick and heavy. And then finally he spoke. "I don't know who you are anymore, Chris. You were always the one who could fix things. Now you're just cutting away." I let the silence stretch, allowing his words to sink in. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. "I'm not running away, Dad. I'm running towards something I've earned, something I believe in. And I'm not going to let you or anyone else tell me it's not enough." Before he could respond, I ended the call. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat there, the weight of what I had just done pressing down on me. But as the minutes passed, I realized something I hadn't truly felt before Leaf. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I had made a choice. A real choice. And for the first time in my life, I was living on my own terms. That night, Mia and I sat on the rooftop of my apartment building, the stars above us a reminder of how far we'd come. Talked about everything, our dreams, the future, the possibilities ahead of us. And in that moment, I knew she was right. I had spent my entire life trying to prove myself to everyone around me, to my parents, to my brother, but I hadn't been proving anything to myself. Now, I was. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. "Chris, you've got this," Mia said, her eyes warm in the city's glow. Whatever happens, you've already won. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of calm wash over me. Yeah, I think I have. The next day, as we prepared to launch our new platform at Horizon Tech, I couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement of hope. This wasn't just a new chapter in my career. It was the beginning of a whole new story, and this time it was mine. But as the project neared its official launch, another message came in. This time, it was from Daniel. I don't know what to say, but I guess you were right. I messed up. The company's falling apart. I need help. Can you come back? I stared at the message, my heart heavy with something I couldn't quite explain. Part of me wanted to help. Part of me felt sorry for him. But the truth was, I had already made my decision. I wasn't going back. I'd moved on, built something better. And I didn't need to go back to fix things that weren't mine to fix anymore. As I closed my phone, I looked at Mia sitting next to me, smiling softly. I don't think I'll ever go back. She squeezed my hand. I know. And I think that's the best decision you've ever made. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in my life, it was my future. And I was ready for whatever came next. The days following my decision to cut ties with Evans Investment Group felt like a fresh start. Horizon Tech was thriving, and I was more focused than ever. The launch of our new platform went off without a hitch. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and we began seeing immediate results. Millions of new users, rising stock prices, and articles in major publications like TechCrunch and the Wall Street Journal. But there was a lingering feeling that I couldn't quite shake. Despite all the progress I was making, the weight of my family's absence was still there. I had made the choice to step away, to build my own legacy. But every time I opened my inbox, there was another message from Daniel, another call from my father, one echoing the same plea. We need you back. I thought I'd moved past it. I thought I had cut that chapter of my life. But the truth was, part of me still felt a pull, like a thread that refused to break. I wasn't looking for their approval anymore. I wasn't. But the deeper I dove into my work, the more I realized I wanted something from them. I wanted them to see me, not as their disappointment, but as someone who had built something real. And then, just when I thought I was done with the past, something unexpected happened. I received an invitation. It was from the Evans Investment Group's annual gala, a black-tie affair held in the heart of Manhattan. It's a kind of event where the elite of the business world gathered to show off their wealth, their influence, and their power. Every year my family hosted it, and every year I avoided it like the plague. But this time, the invitation felt different. This time, it was clear. The letter said, "We'd like you to attend as a special guest. There's something we need to discuss. Your presence is requested." The last part of the message lingered in my mind. Your presence is requested. For the first time in years, I felt the old sense of obligation creeping back in. This wasn't just another attempt to pull me into their world. This was something else. I wasn't sure what, but it felt important. I don't know if I should go, I said, turning to Mia that evening after dinner. She was sitting across from me, her eyes studying me, with that knowing look she always gave me when she sensed my doubts. You don't have to go if you don't want to, Mia replied, her voice steady. But you also don't have to ignore what's happening. If they're asking for you, it might be time to confront what's left unfinished between you and them. Her words made sense. It wasn't about going back to Evans Investment Group or begging for their validation. It was about facing the truth, the parts of myself that I had been avoiding. I had made a life for myself without them, yes. But there was still this gnawing question. Could I really leave all of that behind and move forward with peace? Or would I always be chasing the shadow of my family's expectations? That night, I decided to go. I couldn't keep running away from the past forever. This gala, whatever it was, felt like the final step, a chance to put everything behind me, to move on completely, or at least to face it one last time. The night of the gala, I stood in front of the full-length mirror in my apartment, adjusting the cufflinks on my shirt. I hadn't worn a tuxedo in years. The last time was probably at one of their parties where I'd stood silently in the background, hoping no one would notice me. Tonight felt different. Tonight I wasn't the backup son. I wasn't the quiet one living in his brother's shadow. Tonight I was Chris Evans, someone who had built something with his own hands, someone who had earned his place in this world. Mia helped me with the final touches before we left. Her presence was calming, her warmth grounding. You've got this, Chris, she said, her voice soft but firm. You're not going back to beg. You're going to show them who you are. You really are. When we arrived at the gala, the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons was packed with the city's elite. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, reflecting the dim golden light across the room. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with the sound of laughter and the clinking of glasses. I felt the weight of old memories creeping in, the same oppressive atmosphere I'd grown up with. But this time, I wasn't a kid hoping to be seen. I was a man with his own success, his own purpose, and I was here to show them. I made my way through the crowd, avoiding the people I used to know, the ones who looked at me with pity or indifference. As I approached the stage where my father and Daniel were speaking, I felt a strange sense of power, not the kind of power I used to want, power through status or wealth, but the power that came from knowing I had earned my place on my own terms. My father spotted me first, his eyes widening with a mix of surprise and something I couldn't place. He cleared his throat and handed the microphone to Daniel, who didn't even acknowledge my presence. Instead, Daniel just smiled that perfect, arrogant smile and launched into his usual spiel about the company's next big move. But I could see the cracks in his facade. He was starting to slip. The carefully crafted image of the golden child was beginning to crumble. And then, unexpectedly, the room fell silent. My father stepped forward and cleared his throat. The spotlight shifted to him as he addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice cutting through the noise, "we are about to enter a new era for Evans Investment Group. But before we proceed, I'd like to introduce someone very important to us. Someone who has not only proven himself in ways we couldn't have imagined, but who has created something of his own, something we are very proud of." The applause was almost deafening. But it wasn't for MIT, it was for the illusion of family unity, for the performance my father was putting on. I could feel it. They didn't see me as the person I had become. They saw me as a tool, as a pawn they could use to restore their company's reputation. As I stepped forward, the crowd grew quiet. My heart pounded, but it wasn't fear, it was anger. Anger at the years I had spent living in their shadow. Anger at how they had used me and discarded me like an afterthought. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was done being their backup. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady but sharp. "I'm honored to be here, but let me be clear. I'm not here to fix anything for anyone. I'm not here to restore a legacy that isn't mine to carry. I've spent my life trying to be someone I wasn't. But tonight I'm standing here as the man I've become. And that's who I'm going to be from now on." The silence in the room was thick, suffocating. My father's face turned red, his expression flickering between disbelief and frustration, but I didn't care. This wasn't for him. This wasn't for anyone but me. I looked out at the crowd, at the people who had once overlooked me, and I felt something shift inside. For the first time in my life, I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. I had everything I needed right here. And when I stepped off the stage, Mia was waiting for me. Her eyes locked onto mine, a quiet understanding passing between us. She didn't need to say anything. We both knew that the path ahead was ours to walk, not the one that had been laid out for us. As the night wore on, I realized something important. I had walked into that room hoping to put my past behind me. But now, I understood, it wasn't about putting it behind me. It was about acknowledging it, accepting it, and then moving forward on my own terms. The final question lingered in my mind. What if this was just the beginning? The next few weeks flew by in a blur of meetings, strategy sessions, and late-night brainstorming with the Horizon Tech team. We were on the cusp of something massive. Our platform had gained traction far beyond our initial expectations. Investors were lining up, eager to get a piece of what we had created. And I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride every time I saw one of our features getting mentioned in the media. We had disrupted an industry that was resistant to change, and now we were leading the charge. But there was still that lingering feeling in the back of my mind, the one that crept up during moments of silence or when I looked at the notifications on my phone. It was from my family, my father, my brother. The message was always the same: "We need you back. We can fix this together." I couldn't escape it. Despite the success at Horizon Tech, I realized that what I had built with them, what I had earned, still felt incomplete. Maybe it was because, deep down, I hadn't fully resolved the relationship with my family. Maybe I needed closure, or maybe I needed them to see me the way I had always longed to be seen. Not as their afterthought, not as the backup plan, but as someone who could stand tall in his own right. One evening, After a long day of meetings and another round of discussions about potential mergers, I found myself staring out the window of my apartment, lost in thought. The city was beautiful at night, but it felt distant now, almost like a world I had built for myself and was now trying to understand. I had everything I could have wanted: success, recognition, a growing company, but something was still missing. Mia entered the room, breaking the silence that had hung thick between us. "You've been staring at that view for hours," she said softly, sitting down next to me. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I didn't immediately answer. The truth was, I hadn't been able to shake off the feelings of doubt that had started creeping in. All the success I had built, for all the progress I had made, a part of me still wasn't satisfied. I had chosen to walk away from Evan's investment group, but did that mean I was truly free? Or had I just traded one set of chains for another? "I'd been thinking about them," I finally admitted, my voice tinged with frustration. "About my parents? Daniel. The invitation to the gala, the calls, the constant pressure. It's like I'm never really done with them. Even after everything I've accomplished, I still feel like I'm living in their shadow. I'm supposed to be free, Mia, but I'm still waiting for their approval, even though I've told myself I don't need it." Mia's hand gently touched mine, grounding me in the present. "Chris," she said, her voice steady but compassionate, "you've proven everything you needed to prove, not to them. Not to anyone but yourself. But I think you need to let go of this last piece. You're still holding on to something you don't need anymore. You're free. You've made yourself into something no one can take away." I knew she was right. I'd built my success on my own terms, but somehow, a part of me had held on to the idea that my family's validation was the final piece of the puzzle. What Mia had just said, it hit me harder than I expected. Maybe I wasn't just seeking their approval. Maybe I was still looking for closure. Maybe I was waiting for them to finally see me as the person I had become. That night, after Mia left for the evening, I sat alone with my thoughts. I took out my phone and stared at the texts and emails from my father and Daniel. I could feel the pull, this urge to respond, to go back, to fix things. I had a moment of hesitation, wondering if I should pick up the phone and just end it, go back to what I knew. But then I remembered something that Mia had told me the night we launched our platform. She said, "You don't have to prove yourself to anyone but yourself." The truth of that statement resonated deeply now. I had to let go. Not just of the family legacy, but of the need to reconcile with the past. My future was no longer tied to their expectations. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to do something for myself for once, without worrying about anyone else's approval. I had spent too long being trapped in a cycle of seeking validation from people who could never give me what I needed. The only person I needed to answer to now was myself. I called my father that afternoon. "Dad," I said when he answered, his voice immediately sharp with concern, "I'm not coming back. I've made my choice, and I'm sticking to it." There was silence on the other end of the line. For a moment I wondered if he would argue, or worse, try to manipulate me back into their world. But instead he surprised me. "I know," he said quietly, almost in defeat. "I've known for a while that you weren't coming back, and I'm sorry. I never understood you the way I should have." My heart skipped. For years, I had waited for a moment like this. A moment when my father would finally acknowledge me, not as a reflection of his own ambitions, but as his own son. But even in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need his apology. I had already forgiven him, because I had learned to forgive myself. "I'm not angry, Dad," I replied softly. "I just wish you'd seen me for who I really am." He sighed. "I know, Chris. I do now. But I don't know if it's too late." "I think it's a little late for that," I said, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. "But I'm okay with it." There was another long pause, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to rush the conversation. I wasn't waiting for something. I wasn't hoping for an apology or some kind of dramatic confession. I was just letting go. And that felt like freedom. "I'm proud of you," my father said, his voice low. "You've made something of yourself. I guess that's all that really matters." I didn't respond right away. Said I just let the words settle in. They didn't mean as much as I thought they would, but that was okay, because the truth was, I didn't need his approval anymore. I had found peace in building my own life. As I hung up, I turned to the window, looking out over the city once more. The noise, the bustle, it didn't seem as important now. The only thing that mattered was the path ahead. It was mine to carve, mine to define. The future was full of possibilities, and I was finally ready to embrace it on my terms. That night, Mia came over to the apartment, and I didn't hesitate to tell her what had happened. She listened quietly, her eyes understanding. "You did it," she said, a proud smile lighting up her face. "You finally let go. And now you're free to go after whatever comes next." And just like that, everything shifted. I had let go of the past. I had let go of the chains that had bound me for so long. And for the first time, I was truly free. The following months passed in a whirlwind of success. Horizon Tech was expanding at a rapid pace. We had signed on major clients, secured more investment, and were on the brink of launching a new feature that would change the way people thought about financial independence. Everything was moving in the right direction. I had finally started to feel like I belonged here, not just in the company but in the life I had built. I wasn't living in the shadow of my family anymore. I wasn't chasing the approval of anyone, least of all my father or brother. I was building something real, something that mattered. I was doing it on my terms. Mia and I had grown closer during this time. She had become not just my partner at Horizon Tech, but the one person who truly understood me. There were days when we would lock ourselves in the office after hours, working on projects, debating ideas, and bouncing off each other's energy. And then there were quiet nights, just the two of us, sharing simple moments. It was her belief in me, her unwavering support, that had helped me see things differently. She had never pushed me to go back to my family. Instead, she had given me the space to figure out what I truly wanted, and in doing so, she had become the foundation of the life I was building. But even with all the success, there was still one question that lingered in the back of my mind. What now? I had found peace with my family, or at least with my father's acknowledgement. But I still hadn't fully forgiven myself for the years I had spent trying to fit into a life that wasn't mine. The pressure, the guilt, the longing for validation, it had shaped me in ways I hadn't realized until I finally let go. One evening, Mia and I were walking through the city, our hands intertwined. The air was crisp, and the streets of New York were alive with the sounds of the city, the honking of taxis, the chatter of people walking by, the hum of life moving forward. But as I looked at Mia, I felt like everything was in perfect harmony. For the first time in my life, I was no longer looking for something outside myself. I had found it. It was here, in this moment, in the life I had built. We stopped at a small cafe, sitting at one of the outdoor tables overlooking the street. Mia looked at me, her eyes soft and thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking," she said, her voice quiet but filled with purpose. "About you, about everything that's happened. You've come so far, Chris, and you've really built something. But I think it's time for you to take the next step." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "Next step?" She nodded. "You've already surpassed the expectations of your family. But I think you're ready for something bigger, something more. I know you've been thinking about your legacy, what you want to leave behind. So what if you used everything you've learned, everything you've built, and started something of your own, not just in finance but in the world? What if you built something that could change not just the way we invest, but the way we live?" Her words hit me like a wave. It wasn't the first time I had thought about it, but hearing her say it aloud made it feel real. This wasn't just about launching another product, making more money, or beating my family. This was about creating something that had the potential to truly change the world. I had spent so long looking inward, trying to prove something to myself, trying to carve out a space where I could feel seen. But Mia was right. I had the ability to do more. The question was, what did I want to do with that ability? We sat there in silence for a while, both of us contemplating the future, and in that moment it became clear to me. I wasn't just going to keep building in the world of finance. I was going to do something that combined my knowledge of technology, business, and social impact, something that would leave a lasting legacy. It wouldn't be about competing with my family's empire or trying to prove I was better. It would be about creating something that could truly help people, something that could change lives. "I think I know what I need to do," I said finally, my voice filled with determination. "I'm not just going to follow the path others laid out for me. I'm going to create my own." Mia smiled, the pride in her eyes shining through. "I knew you'd get there. You've always had it in you, Chris. It was never about the approval of your family. It was about finding your own voice." And just like that, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. The idea of creating something larger than myself, something that would impact not just the finance world but the lives of everyday people, felt like the right next step. It was time to take everything I had learned and build it into something new, something that had the power to change everything. A few weeks later, we launched the first phase of my new project, a platform dedicated to democratizing access to financial tools, making them available to anyone, anywhere. It wasn't just about making money. It was about empowering people to take control of their own financial futures. It was about giving them the knowledge and the resources they needed to succeed. The feedback was incredible. People who had never been able to invest before, people who had been shut out of traditional finance systems, were now able to take part. And for the first time, I felt like I was doing something that truly mattered. This wasn't just another product, it was the beginning of a movement. As I stood there, watching our platform grow and evolve, I realized that I had finally done it. I had built my own legacy. I had created something real, something that would last long after I was gone. And in that moment, I knew I had finally found the answer to the question that had haunted me for so long. What if this was just the beginning? The truth was, it wasn't just the beginning. It was the culmination of everything I had fought for, everything I had worked for. I had found my place in this world, not as someone's backup, not as a reflection of anyone else's dreams, but as Chris Evans, the man who had built his own future, his own destiny. And with Mia by my side, I knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger story.